Okay, guys, for all of you in America, happy Thanksgiving. It is the time where we are potentially eating with family today or tomorrow. You're on some holidays. And as I was thinking of what episode do I want to have come out on Thanksgiving, I thought of an episode that's been in my mind for a couple months now on basically talking about and giving you guys some tools when you feel that you don't have a lot of hope in your healing right now. This is a super common place for most people to be that I'm working with, right? If you're listening to this podcast, it's because all the normal traditional healing stuff hasn't worked. The doctors didn't work. The diet changes didn't work. The naturopath didn't work. The chiropractor didn't work. Blog posts didn't work. Meditation didn't work. Whatever you've tried, it hasn't worked. And so you are rummaging around trying to find what to do, and you stumbled upon this podcast or you've been listening to it for a while and you found this episode. If that is you, first off, I just want to say I'm so glad you're here, and I hope that today's episode encourages you. It is all about 10 songs of encouragement that I have listened to over the last, I don't want to date myself, 10 years probably, of going through my own health journey. And then also going through other trials in my life, sometimes related to health, sometimes not related to health. And this is these songs. I've put together a playlist and lyrics for you that you can grab in the show notes. So you can get a playlist for YouTube and a playlist for Spotify. I figured those might be the two most common places people will go for playlists. Sorry if that is not your preferred place to listen to things, but I made playlists of these 10 songs, and on today's episode, because I can't play them for you because of copyright law, I am going to talk to you about why I picked these songs, what they've meant to me, and how I've used them in my life, my healing journey, and just my journey as a human to process, deal with, find courage and hope in difficult situations that could be related to health and not knowing how to heal, or feeling that you have a mountain to climb related to your healing, or being able to move forward. So I hope that today's episode brings you a lot of peace and if anything, maybe just helps bring out emotions and helps you process things. Because on a day of where we're being encouraged to give thanks, it might not be a day where you feel that level of gratitude. Not that you're not allowed to feel gratitude even when things are hard. That is a great thing to have. But some of you today might be struggling with feeling gratitude, especially around the holidays when so much of everything that we're doing is around food, and food can be a touchy subject when you're sick. So here are the 10 songs this week. I hope that you love them. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Before we get into today's episode, before we get into this, I wanted to have a big disclaimer on the 10 songs that I chose. So I'm a Christian, and I will say these 10 songs, 9 out of the 10 of them are by Christian artists and authors. Some of them, honestly, pretty much all of them will refer to God. This is not because you have to be a Christian to listen to these songs. This is not because I have some ulterior agenda that I didn't tell you about. These are where I personally have found hope and encouragement. And I do think wherever your beliefs are on the spectrum of faith and religion, that I hope that these can still be encouraging to you and that I can even describe to you. Maybe you end up not even listening to the songs, but I'm going to be pulling out lyrics and even sharing with you some of the songs are, one in particular is written by a woman with a chronic autoimmune condition and is in chronic pain that she's not been able to get out of. I mean, it's just, she wrote a beautiful, beautiful song. And so I really hope that I don't want anybody to feel that they had the rug pulled out under them. This podcast is not an explicitly like only Christian podcast, but I am a Christian, and it has so deeply, deeply formed how I've approached and walked through difficult things in my life. And it's been an encouragement to me. So that is what I'm sharing with you guys. And there is one song that is not Christian at all. It's the very first song we're sharing. And I'm excited to share that one too. So these 10 songs, I find that they fall into different categories-ish of one of three things: grief, where the song is mostly just sad; recommitment, where the song is trying to basically pull itself up and say, this hurts, but I'm gonna move forward, or this hurts, but I'm going to at least stay standing. I'm just gonna stay here and know that I'm gonna get through this, or straight up hope. So I find that the songs have mixture of all those three, but usually it's primarily grief, primarily recommitment, or primarily hope. So our first song here, and you can find all of these songs, their lyrics, and a Spotify playlist and a YouTube playlist by going to betterbellytherapies.com/fight-song. I did decide to call the playlist the Mold Fight Song playlist because so many of my clients right now are going through the trenches in healing from mold, and it's keeping them from healing even when they've done everything else. Whether or not you know you're dealing with mold, or even if you know you're not dealing with mold, these are not for like just mold issues. This is just generally encouraging. So song number one, again, go to betterbellytherapies.com/fight-song if you want to get the lyrics and the links to the Spotify and YouTube playlist. But song number one is Epiphany by Taylor Swift. Guys, did you know, who suspected me to pick Taylor Swift? So this song is one of Taylor Swift songs that came out in 2020, towards the end of the year. And it's basically inspired by the medical workers who were working with people sick and dying during COVID. So interestingly enough, the way the song opens says, "Keep your helmet, keep your life, son, just a flesh wound, here's your rifle." So the initial image of the song is kind of like a World War I, World War II, like battle in the trenches. Things are ugly. You just got knocked down, but it's just a flesh wound. Keep on going. Where you're feeling like, well, this feels like more than a flesh wound, but okay, I'll keep on going. And I know for us healing, when you listen to the song, you're not a medical worker, like, or you might be, but your primary orientation coming to the song is being sick. And the reason I picked this song was because I felt that it captured better than any other song that I could think of the grief and pain and overwhelm you can go through when you're staring sickness and illness in the face and you don't know what to do. That is 100% what was happening to people who were working in the medical field during COVID. And they were just seeing gobs and gobs of people coming in and getting sick and not getting better and dying. And even having that extra separation of having to wear all of their garb and protection so they don't get sick, but then fearing they're going to bring it home. So the song really somehow brings in all of those emotions of fear and isolation and grief and pain and just the difficulty, the slog of illness. Even though it's not about being ill, it's about more trying to like work and treat with illness. Her next line in the song or in the lyrics is, "Crawling up the beaches now, sir, I think he's bleeding out. Some things you just can't speak about." I think that, when I first heard the song, I like legit cried. I had no idea it was coming. Like the title didn't give it away. No one told me that this song is about COVID and super sad. And just, sometimes we don't have the words as people who've been through illness or are going through it. You don't have the words to describe to your spouse, your friend, your kids, how you feel, how frustrating it is, how much pain you're in, how how powerless maybe you feel over changing your things in your life. I'd say that those two in general, those two opening verses really carried the rest of the song for me. And a lot of it has to do, again, with being the medical staff. With you I serve, with you I fall down, watch you breathe in, watch you breathing out. It is more about caring for people who are ill, but I think sometimes we feel that way about ourselves. We're like, I'm just laying on the couch here, breathing in and breathing out. I hope that the next moment is better than the current moment. I hope that the next day is better than the current day. And that doesn't always happen. And she really captures just the pain of how do you make sense of what you're going through right now? So that song I categorize as pure grief. It's the only song that I really felt I could think of, I could find that I've resonated with, that I've listened to. I probably haven't listened to it a ton because it is super sad. The next songs I've probably played on repeat more, the next 9 songs, as a way to encourage myself. But this one I felt just was like, when we're dealing with emotional difficulties in healing, so I think there is 100% a place to simply grieve. There's 100% a place to simply say, this is hard. I don't know what to do. A business coach of mine once said, it's like going into the fetal position. You don't stay there, but you're like, all right, a bunch of crap just happened. I'm going to go into fetal position for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes, an hour, right? But I'm going to come out of it and I have to move on to the next step. And that's kind of what the next songs are like. So let's move on to the next songs. And by the way, I am just looking at the document of the lyrics that I have. I like bolded text that I found meaningful. So if you want to go back and like see the text of what I'm saying and just like meditate on it yourself and go grab the playlists and listen to these songs, just boop, 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 and hear them all. I was playing these songs a little bit as I was putting this document together with the lyrics, and I legit was getting emotional just thinking of all the years that I've listened to these and how they've helped form me and get me through these moments. One thing I didn't want to say at some point in this episode was the fact that the purpose of these songs has to do with the fact that even when you know all the science, even when the science is maybe even perfectly correct, meaning you're on the perfect protocol and it's just a matter of time, or, you're going through the slog of trying to deal with mold in your home and deciding if you're going to remediate or move out, and there's legal stuff or there's financial issues, when you're going through the slog and it's just, it's not like snapping your finger, just buying one supplement and fixing it, or just getting off of one set of foods or 10 set of foods and you finally feel good. When it's not a simple fix, now you go from a scientific issue, is the plan correct? Is understanding what your issue is that correct? And that's what the majority of this podcast is about. We literally just finished 7 episodes where I talked about 7 different pathogens that people are consistently failing to get healed that leads them to our podcast and our virtual clinic, where they're going through our program, the Better Belly Blueprint, or working with me one-to-one in our Better Belly VIP option. That's what's happening to them, is that the science isn't being correct. But even when the science is correct and they're still in that just the waiting period of letting their body heal, there's the emotional component, right? Of sometimes you just need to be able to say, this sucks. I'm going to be in it, and then I'm going to get out and get going again, even when today it looks like nothing changed, even when I'm not even sure if I made the right next step. The key is to take the next steps. So song number 2 is called Seasons, and this is by Hillsong Worship. And this song is really interesting. I really like the sound of it. It's kind of fun that I'm sharing this song around Thanksgiving. It has the literal like melody and musicality of it has a sense of Christmas. They use some bells, and some of the very, very end of the song refers to the point of Jesus coming to the earth as a child. But the very, very beginning of it and the first few verses and chorus is really built on this imagery of going through winter and this season of winter that is not pretty, it's not fast, it's not glamorous. And the opening lines are like the frost on a rose, winter comes for us all, right? When you are sick, you are in a season of winter. things are not exciting. You do not have the energy you once had or that you want to have. He says, like a seed I've been sown, I've been buried to grow. And so this song immediately starts to play with the idea it's winter, but there are seeds we plant in winter so that we can have a harvest in spring and summer. And we're immediately now getting into this emotional phase of, yes, this sucks. Yes, it feels like winter. And I'm very aware of the hope that I have by the fact that winter cannot last forever. One of the lines in here in the bridge is, I'm just in the winter if all I know of harvest is that it's worth my patience. Because if you're not done working, and he's referring to God, then I'm not done waiting. So this is where faith gets involved. I find that when I'm sometimes coaching and counseling my clients, because I'm not aiming to be a purely secular counselor by any means, I'm not trained or qualified in that. When I'm sharing out of my personal life, I am sharing that believing that there is another power that cares about me and has a plan and sees what's going on is so crucial to psychologically manage the difficulty of it all, because the difficulty is true and real. Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I don't have difficulties. It doesn't mean that all my difficulties get solved every time I pray one prayer and then magically money drops from the ceiling and solves all my problems, or that my body magically doesn't have illness anymore, though that does happen to people sometimes when they pray. So this song is it has a really peaceful sound to it. It has this really beautiful imagery of winter and roses and plants and light and fire and warmth. And it really balances this idea, again, of the pain of like, my barrenness is real right now, but I also know that it just can't stay that way for forever. So that is the second song, Seasons. Third song is I Will Rise. All right, so this song is actually my most recent song that I added to my just like list of like songs that I heard the song. Let's just say I heard the song a couple months ago, maybe two. It was fairly recent, and I don't remember even where I heard it or how I heard it. It really stuck out to me, and then I ended up playing it home and playing it in the car. My daughter knows the song; she loves it. She says, "Play Rise, Mommy." She loves the song. And so this song I put right after Seasons because I Will Rise it also uses a lot of the language of being buried, kind of like a seed or a plant, and being in a place of darkness, being in a place of hiddenness, being in a place of, the details aren't all worked out. So basically there's a couple lines in the song in different places that hit me every time the artist sings it. And number one, it's beyond the burial, there's a resurrection. And that's true. I do think that when we're in seasons where we're very sick, it's basically a daily burial to a certain extent. It's a burial of our hopes and dreams. It's a burial of things that we wish were true that are not. It's a burial of a lot of things, and it's not permanent though. Especially for a Christian, we see burial, especially when it comes to specifically Jesus, but even what he did for us, the fact that we're going to also be buried and have a resurrection. We see this as burial is a real thing, but then so is the resurrection. So it's not a permanent, like I'm dead and I'm never coming back. And I feel that that's like an emotional difficulty that can happen when you're sick, is that this really wrestling with this feeling of this is permanent. I'm never going to get out of this. And when we get into that psychological state, it makes it really hard to then trust another person to potentially work with you as a health practitioner, or to try another thing, or to even get the energy just to do a Google search or talk to somebody. There can be a lot of paralysis involved in this experience of being really sick. And so I think that having that duality of burial and resurrection coming together, which I think is a spiritual truth, whether or not you believe in Jesus or that he rose from the dead, I believe that God created this world with the spiritual truth that when there's burial, like when you bury a seed, the seed actually dies and then it grows again. You might say that's not quite scientifically correct, but it is different compared to like using a seed. Like if you had a wheat kernel and you made it into bread, You're taking a seed and you make a product that you can eat. If you take a wheat kernel and you bury it in the ground, you can't eat it anymore. It's not food. You've actually delayed gratification with that. But when you delay it, you actually bear more fruit in the long run, right? That's the concept of burial and resurrection that is true in this life before we actually physically die. That when we bury things, when things are buried inside of us, even against our will, that we have the opportunity for there to be potential for fruitfulness. And I do think it is required that we submit to that burial and we work through the process and keep moving forward in the ways we can with the limited energy or resources, emotional, financial, etc. that you have. There's other lines in it. What's in me will grow someday. I trust your timing and your ways. And then in the chorus or the bridge, it says, I will rise, I will rise. He holds the time that I will rise. And I think that's what solidified this song for me, of sitting on the ground, on my knees, crying, listening to the song, legit ugly guys, like just processing hard things that I've gone through in the last few months, and thinking, yes, I am buried. I don't know if I can get much deader than this, but he holds the time that I will rise. He holds the time that I will rise. And that's given me great courage. All right, song number 4. It's called Do It Again by Elevation. Opening lyrics, walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. The imagery is immediately talking about a story in the Bible, the story of Jericho, where God told the Israelites to walk around the walls of Jericho for 7 days, and on the last day, walk around the walls 7 times. So they're walking around this huge city that has fortified walls. And the idea was that if they followed these instructions to walk around it 7 days, and on the 7th day to walk around it 7 times, then that the walls would actually just fall down, just miraculously fall down. And so it's calling back this imagery of haven't I walked around this problem enough? Essentially, I thought by now I've circled this problem enough that it would be gone. Isn't that how we feel when we're sick? You're haven't I done enough? Why is this problem still here? His next verse is waiting for change to come, right? You're just do I just keep walking? What do I do next, right? He reaffirms later in the song, I know the night won't last, your word will come to pass, and my heart will sing your praise again. So the truth is that nights can feel really long. There are times maybe you're not sleeping. There's times your kids aren't sleeping. There are times you wake up in the middle of the night and pure panic rushes through your body because you're thinking about all the problems you just learned that your body has. Maybe it's Lyme disease, maybe it's mold, maybe it's a parasite, maybe you're just thinking about, how am I gonna, get through the holidays and know what foods to eat. But you're waking up and it feels like those hours of the night last forever. You're just waiting so you can fall back asleep and get through the night, or just somewhat terrified, but just waiting. At least the day can come and you can get going again and start thinking about other things. And he said, but the truth is no matter how long the night feels, night does not last. So another concept of the burial is not permanent. The night is not permanent, but it is true. You are in a night. So we're never saying you're not in night. Just be happy. It's not as bad as you really think it is. It is. These songs are real. These songs are, and I think I say that partly because I think that some people, whether or not you grew up with any familiarity with the Christian background or faith, or maybe it's not familiar at all, I think sometimes people can have a perception that Christianity, maybe even with many other religions, is kind of happy-go-lucky and just pray to God and everything's solved. And yes, we pray to God. Yes, we have faith in him, but it doesn't mean that everything is perfect. Otherwise, this would be a very idyllic religion. Hey, if you join Christianity, have you noticed that all those people are wealthy and don't get sick and never die? Yeah, that would be very notable. But our strength and our life is an internal experience. And there's more theology behind that, why don't we, receive some massive benefits package when we become a Christian? We do, but it's more of an unseen benefits package. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm honestly not going to get into it on this podcast episode, but if you guys want to know, I love theology, and am highly qualified to do that. And I don't know if you guys really want it, let me know. DM me on Instagram or something. All right, song number 5. So this was the song I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, where it was written by an author who has an autoimmune illness. She's chronically ill. And actually on my YouTube playlist that I put together, I grabbed a video that includes the song, but in like the first 5 or 10 minutes before the song, it actually shows the artist, Melissa Helser, sharing the story herself on how she wrote it. But whether or not you watch that, just to let you know how this song came about. It was probably the first song I ever thought of. It was when I heard her share this. I happened to hear her live at a performance, sing the song, and before she sang it, she shared it. I had never heard the song before. I didn't even know who this lady was, but she was sharing her story. And I was super sick at the time, so it probably would have been around 2015. So in the middle of sickness, I had no answers. I was not cool. I did not have a podcast. I was lost just like you in terms of healing. And she shared this story of having an autoimmune illness, and she, different days she wakes up, sometimes she's in greater pain and than others. And she had one morning, she had to get up, had to get her kids ready. And she was in just an enormous amount of pain, gets up, takes a shower. I mean, that's already hard enough. She's blow drying her hair, and she's praying to the Lord, like, please take this heaviness from me. Like, I need to get through the day. I have things to do today. Please, can this just be a day where I don't have this pain? And she really feels the Holy Spirit speak to her and say, I want you to sing your way out of the pain. And this is not to say that the Lord is not sympathetic or the Lord makes you jump through hoops to be healed. But this was just a specific moment of saying, sing through the pain. And she's kind of like, I don't want to, basically. Like, no. and the Holy Spirit keeps encouraging, like, sing through the pain, sing out of this, sing my faithfulness. So she's blow drying her hair upside down, and she just starts, and she is an artist. She's, had already been doing music for decades. And she just sings these words that are the opening words of the song that she's never sung before. She's never written down. And she just declares, I'm strong and full of life. I am steadfast, no compromise. I lift my sails to the sky. I'm going to catch the wind. And that's the opening of the song. Just so powerful. I don't even know if, hopefully I don't need to explain that too much. The idea that sometimes we need to just say to ourselves, not that, no, this doesn't hurt, but also it hurts and I am strong and full of life. And this is becoming my new reality and I can walk into it. And that has been, again, I've had moments this year and the past year, even when these have not been my sickest years of life. Those definitely belong best solidly back in 2014, 2015. Gross. But there can still be health issues or health concerns that pop up, in particular mold, some tinnitus I had this year, nosebleeds my daughter was having, things like this that we've now resolved and I've shared more on in previous episodes, particularly my mold series, which I think is back in the 220s for the podcast episodes. If you want to go back to that, I have like one episode called My Tinnitus Journey. You can go listen to that if you want to hear about that. That's literally from this year. I had never had tinnitus before this year, and then I did for about 6 months. It was not fun, and I was I shared the whole story in that episode. But this is, I'm strong and full of life, and I think that there were days, there were moments in that journey of having tinnitus, like the first night I had it, and it just clearly wasn't going away. I remember I could not sleep. That was a long night. I draw myself a bath in our bathroom and I put some Epsom salts in it and I just lay in there and almost guaranteed cried and was just frustrated and trying to be like, you do this for a living, you're a health professional, calm down. And I was like, I'm not calm, right? You have those moments where you're kind of processing the pain, and then waking up or getting to the next day, maybe not even that morning, but maybe a day later, I'm saying, no, I'm going to get through this. I am strong and full of life. And this song, some key words that really stick out to me later in the song, she says, I'm confident. I'll see your goodness now. I know you hear my heart. I'm singing out. So that phrase, I'm confident, is so important. It is so important. When you lack confidence in everything else, like you're like, I'm not confident if this practitioner is right for me. I'm not confident if these supplements are going to get me where I want to go. I'm not confident if I'm going to feel better tomorrow compared to today. Like there's a lot of things you might not be confident on like specific details, but you are confident you will eventually get there. And this song, I mean, it is rooted in, I'm confident that the Lord will be good to me. I'm confident in his goodness. Her story has been interesting in terms of her health journey and kind of the overall arching story, but she does share in that specific moment as she's singing these words out, that it's as she's singing that the pain lifts. And so it's as we shift our emotions and we shift our heart and our mind, not to deny or suppress the feelings of pain, but to fully accept them and say, this is painful and I'm going to stand up and move forward. It's as we do that we gain strength. And then therefore, because of that word confident, I put my next song on this list. Song number 6 is Confident by Stephanie Gretzinger. This was a song that I listened to on repeat a lot in 2018 when I was going through not so much physical illness, but more mental growth. I had just started my business. I had a lot of mindset issues around who am I to try and heal people, and I was training for a marathon and just trying to like break off some really old beliefs and habits and negative thoughts. And this song was a song I just listened to a lot as I ran, like 5 miles every morning, and my long runs like 20 miles because I ran my first full marathon. And it says in the lyrics, opening lines, "You're always moving in the unseen. The breath you exhale sustains me. Before I call, you know my need. You're always going before me." Yes, this is explicitly about God. But, and again, I was very open about this when we started the podcast. But her next line is, "I'm confident your faithfulness will see me through." And I think the emotional component behind it is there's unseen thing like around me. I don't see the hope. Like you're always moving in the unseen. God is her hope that is unseen for her, moving in the background. And what she sees is the crap. What she sees is the hard thing. And the unseen is where she's saying, there's good things coming, but I definitely can't see it, right? And that happens for us, right? When we're sick, we have the crap that's immediately in front of us. And we have to get to a point where we can see the unseen. The Bible actually has a verse that says hope is it. We don't have hope in what we see. Hope is an assurance in what we do not see. That's like Hebrews chapter 12. It's either that or Hebrews chapter 11. One of those things. But hope is the assurance of things unseen. This is true whether we're talking about Christianity or we even talk about faith or religion. We could be talking about, not even talking about God, right? When you start college, you don't have a diploma in your hand. It's actually 4 years away. That's a fairly long time. But you have hope in the assurance that you will have that diploma at the end, even knowing it's going to be hard. You're going to have to pull all-nighters. There might be classes you don't get great grades in. There might be professors you don't like. There might be, things you have to do, essays or assignments or exams you have to study for that are hard. There might be students you don't like, classmates, roommates, whatever it is. Like there's only between you and that diploma, there's 4 years of hardship, but you have assurance of that hope, and that makes you move forward and say, that diploma is worth it. And whether or not you've gone to college, there's all sorts of reasons for that. I mean, if you've ever trained for some type of physical endurance thing, before I could run a marathon, I couldn't run a marathon. And the scene was Allison can't run a marathon. And actually, for most of my life, I couldn't even run 1 mile. That's a story for another time. For most of my life, I really couldn't run more than a mile. Meaning I couldn't run a mile. I had to walk it. I didn't know why. I now know why, and I fixed that problem. But I went from basically the scene was Allison can't run a mile to suddenly I have this huge thing between I can't run a mile and I'm going to run 26.2. Guys, why don't I remember what a marathon is? 26.2 miles. The unseen is I'm going to be able to run 26.2 miles. That is not my reality. I cannot see it. It is not real yet. But hope is the assurance that if I follow certain steps, I will get there. And maybe I'm going to get injured. Maybe I'm going to need to find a chiropractor. I did, hint. And that was its own journey of like, I need to be training, but I can't because my knee hurts every time I run, and I need to find a good chiropractor and not a bad one. And I found a bad one first and I wasted money on them. Like, this is what happens, right? There's bumps in the road. There's issues that come up. Maybe it's a hope that you're going to find a spouse one day if you're still single, or maybe that was your story, right? You were single. All of us were single at one point, but I was single for an extended period of time compared to most of my friends. And I was hopeful that man existed, but he was unseen. Right? So I think I'll give you 3 examples to try and draw from your own life. There's been something in your life where it was unseen. It was not a reality for you. It did not exist, and now it does in a positive way. But there was difficulty between you and that thing. And I do think that that's what this song's getting at. Even though for her, she's really identifying with God as the unseen mover who is working things out for her. The only other line in the song that really I just absolutely love and wanted to highlight was, I won't win this battle with the strength of my own hands. And I actually think this is true for all people who are sick. Not because your strength of your own hands are not involved or irrelevant by any means, or that you're weak or you're too weak to help yourself. But the idea is that when you are sick and you really don't know what to do, you're not like, oh, I just need to like work out a little bit more and everything will get better. Or I just need to like go to sleep earlier and I'll be fine. Like the simple things lucky people get to do to make their health better. Whoever those people are. At the end of the day, I won't win this battle by the strength of my own hands. We need other people. We need our spouses, we need our parents, we need a good friend, we need health practitioners. There's other forces that need to be involved in this, and we have to submit and trust them. Whether or not you're trusting God, like she's saying, I'm trusting God, and I've said that as well. But I've also had to say, I trust this chiropractor, right? I trust you. From when I went from the bad chiropractor, who I actually share about this in my episode, my top 5 best and worst health investments. I'm going to just go grab it. And I will put some of these episodes in the show notes. Like when I mentioned, let's see, best and worst. Okay. No, that's not it. Top 5 best and worst investments in my health is episode 57. Talked about it way long ago. So this is going to be in the show notes. I'm also going to share the episode link to my tinnitus episode if people want that. All right. So I grabbed that as episode 57, but yeah, I went from the bad chiropractor who I wasted money with, and he was clearly phony, and it took me a while to figure it out, but I figured it out. Phony meaning like he just wasn't going to help, and he was a little shady and whatever. And then I went to the good chiropractor, and he was even more expensive, but I felt significantly better about his process and what I knew about him and things I'd kind of sleuthed from other people or from chatting with him. And I remember the price point I think was like $1,500 or something for kind of what he calls the intense period of working together, which I think for me was a 12-week program. When my husband worked with him, it was 8 weeks. I was clearly more messed up. I think it was longer than 12. It was like 16. It was like a 16-week, like you have a lot of things to fix. And the $1,500 was the most I'd ever spent on my health in my entire life. It was like looking at a monster of an investment. I was like, I didn't even know a number could exist this big for health. And I remember thinking, I have to trust this guy. I cannot fix myself. I can't tell myself what to do or what exercises to do. I can't adjust myself. I don't have this skill set. So I couldn't win this battle with the strength of my own hands. I had to trust somebody else. And that is true no matter what. There can be, you can acknowledge like, I've been burnt. That sucked. I don't like being burnt. What lessons can I learn from the people who haven't fixed me yet? But eventually you do have to trust somebody else again. And that leads us into our next song. The next song is called Nothing I Hold On To by Will Reagan. And he said the key line that I really like listening to. This is a super simple song. There's not a lot of lines to it. He repeats himself a lot, so it's more of a meditative song, great to listen to kind of on repeat. But he says, In the bridge, I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. And the idea being that I am not the one climbing this mountain. The Lord is for me. And I do think that sometimes we need to have that posture emotionally that we're sometimes gripping so hard. I have to have all the facts. I have to have the truth. And like, I love facts, guys. I love science. This is episode 240. So we have almost 240 episodes. And when I say almost, there's some other episodes in here about like emotions and stuff. But most of our episodes are about science, honestly. Like, I just like science. I like hard facts. That's been, to me, the key of trying to make something black and white that looks so gray when we're trying to heal. And it's been wildly successful with my clients, me pursuing this approach of let's get more facts opposed to less and really tease apart the things that are myths and lies that are proliferating, causing people to stay sick, and honestly making other practitioners make dumb choices that's making them stay sick. So I love facts, but facts can't always carry you up the mountain. There has to be you can't always grip your way into facts. And there's been times where the facts look like they're opposing. One thing says this won't work, one thing says it will. And there's going to be a point where you have to do a gut reaction, a gut check, and say, what do I think I'm going to trust, right? We come back to that concept of trust. Trust has to be involved. And there's a bit of opening up your hands and saying, I'm not in control. I'm not in control of my cells. I'm not in control of my body. I'm not in control if this thing is going to work, but I am going to move forward. So that's song number 7. And song number 8, Peace Be Still. This is a powerhouse. It's by an artist called Lauren Daigle. Her background in singing is like blues from like the Deep South. And she's got this like super bold powerhouse voice. Super fun. So great song to listen to and like belt out in the car if you are a singer or ever like hype songs. If you're like looking for a hype song, this definitely hits it. So some of the lyrics stand out. I don't want to be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't want to fear the storm. I don't want to fear the storm. I really like how this is starting to grab into the emotional experience of sometimes you get symptoms that flare the heck up and you're like, where'd this come from? And it can be so tempting to just let fear like wash over us and take over, and we become these crazy fear monsters of like something's happening and I'm going to die, or my child is hurt, or that's been something I've dealt with this year with some symptoms Sarah's had, my daughter, of like, what's going on? She's telling me this thing and it's freaking me out. So I'm not saying that it doesn't mean you're unmoved or that you don't care or you're somehow cold, but the idea is that we don't need the fear to unglue us, unshelve us. There's this passage in the Bible in James, a book of the Bible called James, in the first chapter, and it says that we don't want to be like, don't let ourselves be tossed and turned by like a ship on the waves, right? So you get the sense in her song of like, I don't want to be afraid every time I face the waves, because it's the waves, they're tossing us back and forth and you don't know what to think and you're exhausted, you spiral, and then you're just down on the ground because you're not only sick, now you're just emotionally dead. You're emotionally passed out with the fear and you're paralyzed, right? And being paralyzed is what will keep you sick in many ways. Again, it's okay to be paralyzed, but then we want to say, I'm going to come out of that fetal position. I'm going to move forward. So she goes on later in the course, says, I'm not going to be afraid because the waves are only waves. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid. And I'm not going to fear the storm. And most of her rationale is because of the Lord. The Lord is good. The Lord is here. And then the title of the song comes from the chorus, Peace be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. And she's alluding to to a story in the Bible of Jesus is walking on the waves in the middle of the storm, and one of his disciples, one of the 12 men who's following Jesus the closest, is in a boat. All 12 disciples are in the boat, but one of them decides it's a great. He's like, well, if Jesus is walking on water, I'm going to step out. And he's a fisherman. He's been on the sea a lot. He knows, like, just like probably any human, stepping out onto the water and sea is a bad idea. Not just like in general, because you're going to have to swim, but like in a storm, that's rough. And he steps out and he's walking on water. And so she's basically saying, if you tell me to walk on water, if you tell me to do the impossible, if you tell me to move forward when I am, my gut reaction is to be afraid, but you actually want me to like go deeper into the fear. You want me to go into the waves. I will do that. And I do think that, again, whether or not you're Christian or listening to God or believe that you are listening to God or another power, I do believe that you have to actually go deeper into the fear. Meaning you're going to have to do things that make you potentially more afraid in terms of you're going to have to invest in something that might not work. You're going to have to trust somebody. Again, might not want to trust everybody. I think part of having a faith, like if I'm a Christian, it's because I have said, I trust God, the God of this faith, more than another faith, right? So you are picking and choosing. And you're going to find practitioners, you're like, you're just not hitting with me. And there's, I can't actually think. I know that on other podcasts of mine, I've talked about how to like, maybe on the more logical side, how to maneuver making a decision about somebody when you have already been burnt before. But that it's just a component of it that we do eventually need to trust. Song 9, almost done, guys. It's called Praise Before My Breakthrough. It's by Bethel Music, or not by Bethel Music. It's by Katie Torwalt. I read something that was incorrect. Katie Torwalt, really peaceful song, has a really chill sound to it. She opens saying, I know the tension of the now. I don't always understand. I don't always get to see everything. You're like, okay, well, that really explains itself. When I'm holding up my hands, when I'm counting every breath, Lord, all I need to know is that you choose me. I'll praise before my breakthrough. And the idea here is, again, I don't even have my breakthrough yet, but I'm going to choose to say, Lord, you are good, and I'm going to act as if my breakthrough is here and coming, right? And that's just an emotional boost, not like lying to ourselves. You're not being like, it's here, it's not really here. It is declaring the more on an emotional level, an emotional truth that it is coming. And then in the bridge, she says, he who came in power, won't he come again? He who heals the sick, won't he move again? So even explicitly mentions being sick, and I like any song that does that. All right, song number 10. So this is a big shift, somewhat. And if you're listening to these songs in this order, you'll kind of go through these, like, I Will Rise is a really big song. I will rise, I will rise. I'm a vocalist. I do sing. I do sing with these songs when I listen to them. Or like Lauren Daigle's song, Peace Be Still, big song. And then we get to Good, Good Father, and it's simple. It's a really simple song. The lyrics are simple. The melody is simple. And it's just more of a meditating song. And this one probably is the most Christian-centered song, meaning I started listening to this song in 2016-ish when I went to a new church. I'd never heard it before. The song opens with, oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like. I'm actually going to say, oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, right? It's this opening song of, I've been tempted to see the Lord as of a calloused, angry, maybe flippant, or here one day, not here another person, right? And I think that I grew up in the church my whole life, and I unfortunately went to a lot of churches that were mainly legalistic, and this is a term meaning they focus more on the rules than on the relationship with God. And there are guidelines, there are better ways of living God calls us to, but this gets into like some other theology stuff. But at the root of it, we are not saved by our good works. That's just like every other religion. Which again, it gets a little into theology. We're not saved by what we do and how good we are. We're saved by acknowledging that that God did something for us and having a relationship with him. And And I think when I heard this, I thought, I've personally been mostly experiencing God as a, do the right thing. And in health, this might be, I've mostly experienced health as just take the right supplements, just eat the right foods, just perform good enough and everything will work. And it's more like, can you have a relationship with your body? Can you live in this push and pull and listening to what it needs, all these things? Later he says, I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide. And I think at the end of the day, there is a mystery in some ways to how people heal. Not emotionally, even physically. Every client of mine has different stories of how they end up working with us and what exact tools make the biggest difference for them. But over and over again, those answers, they have to discover themselves. They have to pursue. I can meet people all the time who are like, wow, you are sick and you could really benefit from work I do, but they are not looking for those answers, right? You are looking for answers. You are looking for answers that somebody else can provide. And it's there, right? It's there. So, that song you might resonate the least with if you don't see yourself as a Christian, but you also might find it peaceful. So highly recommend still listening to it. I really love it. So those are the 10 songs. It was a longer episode than I was planning on it being, but it was 10 songs. And I did want, even if you never listen to the songs, I wanted to describe some of the emotional intricacies and developments that happen as we are going from sick to healing. It's just a reality. It's a real thing of what's going on, that there's emotion. It's not all science at the end of the day. It's not. You are a human being who has emotions. You have a brain, you have a psychology, you have a limbic system. You have all these things that make you emotional, and the emotions are not bad, but how do we navigate them, and how do we acknowledge them when there's also just chaos? If feels like coming at us, and the chaos is not just around us, like, oh, I lost my job. It's in us. It's like, my cells are dysfunctional. I can't think. I have pain. I can't eat food. It feels so urgent. And how do we bring that urgency down and say, and even have self-compassion, and then say, but I'm going to move forward. I know that there's a better way. I know that after burial, there's resurrection. I know that after night, there's daytime. And that's what these songs really get at. So I hope this episode encouraged you. Again, if you want these lyrics or the playlist, go to betterbellytherapy.com/fight-songs. Grab these lyrics, grab the playlists from either Spotify or YouTube or both. And I hope this blesses you. Happy Thanksgiving to all my American friends, my non-American friends. You can also have a happy Thanksgiving. And I'll see you guys on our next episode. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.